Thanks for having me today. I'd like to talk to you about the military community and what they do for our industry, and I hope it's wider ranging than what you originally think of. But I can't stand here today on September 11 and not recognize the significance of this date in our nation's history. It's been 22 years, and it seems like just the blink of an eye when the courage of the first responders and the sacrifices that they made and the needless loss of civilian lives happened on this day. But what I remember most about this day is the day after and the years after, when young men and women across the country lined up outside of recruiting offices and said, "Send me." Time and time again, when I was downrange, I worked with these young folks and was amazed at the dedication and courage that they exhibited as they had raised their hand in time of trouble and knew that they would be going into harm's way. And every generation talks about the generation coming after them, wondering if they will be able to carry on the torch. And I saw that absolutely they carried on the torch, and they did their job in a marvelous way in the worst conditions possible. As a father, I saw my son enlist in the Army and become a bomb specialist. He's retiring next year. My daughter was an orthopedic surgeon. She went in the Navy and she got out last year. My son was a stand-up comedian, and he made people laugh, and that was the best option that he did for our side, because a gun in his hand would not have done as much good as making people laugh. So we all serve in different ways. I enlisted in 1976, got out after 4 years and went in the reserves, became a second lieutenant in 1982, stayed in the reserves and got called up for Haiti in the mid-90s when we invaded. Stayed in the reserves because I always wanted to be ready, and then 9/11 came along and got called up 6 more times. One of the proudest moments I had was in 2010 on my last deployment to Iraq. I had to go to Afghanistan for something. My son was also deployed to Afghanistan at the time. And just by happenstance, helicopter breaks down, and I sit down at an outpost. He had stopped in at the same outpost going to Waziqwa, and we had our father-son Kodak moment, and it was kind of cool. Took the picture, and about an hour later, the bad guys thought that they should overrun the base because about half of the company had gone on a combat logistics patrol, which is kind of like going to Costco if you're a civilian. 3 days later, after 3 days of combat, the bad guys are having to tell Allah that we shouldn't have underestimated half a company of paratroopers, and we're getting to tell our buddies back home a really cool father-son story. And then I retire in 2012, and the situation at the time was we'd had an economic meltdown in 2008, 2009. We'd had 2 surges in Iraq, and the typical veteran that had gone in, done their 4 years and gotten out, was almost 25% unemployed. And the unemployment offices were marking them as unskilled. And I wanted to do something about that at the time. So my buddy, Jason Oakroy, and I started Salute, got the training program together to be able to turn any veteran into a technical specialist that could deploy projects. In the first 2 years, we got the projects going and started rolling them out. And while we were rolling out those projects and learning from it, we got our operations procedures down and came to the market in about year 3 with a technology-enabled services program that could reduce the number of staff on site and be able to leverage technology, because for the years leading up to that, we'd always thrown bodies at data center operations. But we wanted to be able to come with a platform that could reduce operations expense, reduce the risk, and be able to scale with the economy, as well as solve the personnel shortage problem. We built this, the hockey stick took off, and we saw the growth. We saw the growth of the company take off, and we got to this 10-year point now. We've got 1,000 employees operating data centers in 12 countries. We've done projects in almost 180 countries, and the company took off like a spark. It took me till about year 4 or 5 to realize that what started out as wanting to serve my comrades had actually been a good business idea, because we tapped into a workforce that had thousands of dollars already invested in it, had experience in all kinds of conditions that are transferable to our industry. People think of infantry and cooks and truck drivers as just that. But if you look beyond that, an infantry person is maintaining their vehicle, their weapon systems, and their communications gear, just like a data center technician is maintaining their equipment. You just have to teach them new equipment. Cooks are determining how to feed safely 300 people a day in all kinds of conditions. That's a project manager. You just need to give them a different project and show them how to break down those work structures. The military has so many skills behind it, if you look beyond the specialty, that you can convert quickly if you invest in the training programs. And that's what we're here today, is I met a company called Iconics about 2 years ago. Chris and Stephanie knew from the beginning what I found out about 4 years into this is it's worth investing in that technology. So they were hiring junior and mid-range officers coming out of the military and turning them into commissioning specialists, QA/QC specialists, owners reps, and they built Iconics. So we brought the companies together, we agreed to acquire them, and now we're hiring not just enlisteds and senior NCOs, but officers as well, and we can hit the entire military community and bring them to the industry. We've brought, I think, almost 5,000 people from the military into the industry. We've got over 1,000 now in Salute across the world, and we're continuing to do that because people leave Salute, they go on into the industry, and they have exciting careers with it, because you're only going to stay with a company so long. We've turned a negative into a positive. We celebrate when someone leaves Salute because they go to our clients, and we have a friend inside the fence. And the big thing is that you can build a company like this and have a return. And the reason I tell you this is not to brag, but we work with other companies to help set up military programs, because the key is you can use us as a case study, and they've been doing that, is we're growing at 3 times the industry average. The industry is about 18%. We're growing consistently at 45%. We can grow the next 3 years at 45% without closing another deal because of our backlog of deals. And that's because of the workforce we've developed and the service model. If you go to your boss and you say, well, AWS and Microsoft and Google are putting millions of dollars a year into their training program and hiring military vets and training them to become what they need them to be, they'll say, well, that's hyperscalers, that doesn't count. It does count, because hyperscalers have to have shareholder value. They don't invest anything without getting that, but you can't pull those numbers out. You can pull the numbers out and use Salute as an example if you're trying to solve your personnel shortage problem, and you can put that up against them and show the skills of what you're bringing into it. A lot of people pay lip service to it, but the leadership skills, the critical thinking, the problem solving that you get with the military community coming in is vital. About 5 years ago, Dean Nelson and I sat down and we started talking about the successes of Salute and what it brings to the table. There's some things that you don't see that it brings, and that's that veterans are a microcosm of society. We bring diverse ways of thinking, diverse backgrounds, people from the hills of Tennessee like myself, people from the inner city New York and Miami, and that brings that microcosm to you so that you have a diverse workforce, so you can tap into that. And we agreed to have a strategic alliance, and we started the Armed Forces community, hoping that we could bring the military community to the entire industry, because of the thousands of people that we brought to the industry, just a handful of them even knew that we existed. So we're hoping to get other people to ally with us, join Infrastructure Mason's Armed Forces community, get out to the military bases and let them know that we exist. Because if they know we exist, they can make a choice and they can join, whether it's you or me or whatever company they join. Salute can't hire 200,000 transitioning veterans a year, but between us, we can all have our prime pick of some great resources. And as you're looking at the pick of resources, don't forget that 85% of them are married, and military spouses are continuously reinventing themselves. And we've hired a lot of military spouses into the ranks. And you look at a resource pool that has to adapt every 2 to 3 years to a new job, you've got a very adaptable resource there to invest in as well. So what I'm trying to say is, don't overlook the military community and don't look just at the specialty. And if you want to join an effort to try to keep up with things, think about what's coming down the line with artificial intelligence. You're going to learn that in the next panel. Think about the pilots that we're running with autonomous drones and artificial intelligence already. Think about who's got more experience with drones and artificial intelligence than the military. And you'll hopefully join our effort and go after the military community to get them into this, because we're going to need more and more as the growth spirals out of control. Thanks for your time.